Well, I have quickly written down 40 questions about Anabaptists, about politics, about marriage, about religious leaders and morality and other questions. So I'm explaining these things now, starting with questions about Anabaptists. Who were the Anabaptists? Well, the Anabaptists were the people who were killed by the Protestants and by the Catholics, and they were given that name. They did not give that name for themselves. They just called them good people, and not by a special name, but this is how they were called. And they were also called by other names like Waldensians, Albigensians, in German Winkler, Stäbler, meaning people who hide in a corner, or people who go with a staff around. And these were the Anabaptists. They were the people who did the right things that the Evangelicals and Catholics do talk about. No one knows them, and it's a sad story. The next question is, why do Evangelicals and Catholics twist the history of the Anabaptists? Well, it's very obvious why they twist the history of the Anabaptists, because they were the right people, and the Catholics and the Protestants were the anti-Christians. And that's why they twist the history to spread as many lies as they can. Until this day, no one knows the real history of them. Not even their formal followers today that are called Anabaptists. They don't know their history. They believe what the Catholics and Protestants lied about them. So the third question, what lies are being told about Anabaptists? Well, there are many lies told about them. I mean, there was made a movie called The Radicals. If you look at that movie, it's about the Anabaptists, it's about the Reformation, about Zwingli and these people, evangelicals. Now they came against the Anabaptists. There, for example, they show them that they just sprinkled adults with water, which was, not really true. And this is just one thing in the movie. They said they were weird Gnostics and had weird writings, and they said that they emerged only in the 16th century, only after or around the Reformation, which is wrong. They were always there. I mean, you could call them by different names, of course. In former times, sometimes they were called Donatists, things like that. And there are many lies told about them. I mean, in order to justify killing them, they spread rumors publicly, many things. And to this day, most things that you read online are invented lies from Catholics and Protestants about the Anabaptists. Then the fourth question is, which Anabaptists were wrong? Well, I mean, almost all of them, of course, because there is always only a portion of people who are really good, and there's always a broad spectrum that is wrong. I mean, you could call them Anabaptists, but they within themselves, I mean, to talk politically, they just saw every group individually. They were not part of a big denomination. And when they said they were part of something, they were only pointed to the morally good people. And those who did not, they were wrong. They were also killed by the Evangelicals and Catholics, most of them, but most of them were wrong. They even admitted that. So if you read something about Anabaptists, you basically read something from people who were Anabaptists and they were wrong. And there are almost nothing left from those within that group that were right. Yeah. I mean, they did not say they were of that group, but just to make it, to give it a name, all the wrong systems, they have to have some name, But you have to treat every individual individually. But if you say you're part of Anabaptism, that doesn't make you a murderer, because they were always murdered. So you're not guilty of bearing that name, but bearing the name Evangelical Catholic makes you guilty, because they were murderers. I mean, I will later on go to an instance where there were murderers. Anabaptists, or you could say that later on. Then, what about Amish? Fifth question. Well, Amish were wrong. To this day, they are wrong. This is a split of this Anabaptist group, or Täufer in German, and you see the results today. They are mainly believing evangelical doctrines, evangelical things. I don't want to say much about them. What about the Hutterites? Well, the Hutterites are also wrong. They are as the Amish, some who separate themselves, and they are not today persecuted, they are not killed, so they have to be wrong. Because if you write, everyone kills you. What about Mennonites? Well, Mennonites are the same as Amish and Hutterites. There's not much difference. They're also wrong. They're just a split of that Anabaptist group and things. It's just wrong. Everything that contradicts what you have, Evangelicals and Catholics, what you have in your documents that you read publicly, well, everything that contradicts that is wrong. And you see it in the morality and in the life of the people. I don't want to spend much time on that. What about Anabaptists of Münster? A place in Germany. Well, city. There were some Anabaptists who had the rule for some years, and they inflicted death penalty on people and threw evangelicals out of the city and things like that for some years. And then they are, the reason why evangelicals to this day then always excused killing all of them, because there was outrage in that city. They had several wives, and probably, I don't know what they did. And they were just, everyone who was a good person said he's not a member of them, he has nothing to do with them. And if he's charged of being of that group, he always said, I'm not part of them. So I'm saying the same. You can call them, I don't know, I don't care how someone calls me or calls people from my past, my people who came before me. I don't care if they called them people from Münster and things like that. There was just something that happened for some years. Evangelicals did it all the time, everywhere. And if they did it once somewhere, they justify killing everyone, but they deserve death much, 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 much more. And if they then throw evangelicals out of their society, it is not a bad thing. They should be thrown out of every society. They should not be allowed, evangelicals and Catholics. So it has no balance, what they say, although I have nothing to do with these Anabaptists of Münster. And then ninth question, who was Menno Simons? Well, read his writings, then you know. He was so-called Anabaptist, one of them that were killed by the Catholics and Protestants. He was a good person. He was a person who really did the things of the religion that started 2000 years ago. He was one of them, and he had no fault, and the things he said were right in everything, and he had no fault, humanly speaking. So if you read what he said, he's the only person, the only witness alive in the last 2000 years, other than the people who started it, that publicly declared what this whole religion, the good religion, is about. He's the only person, other than I am now doing. I am the second person. There are only two people. You can maybe find a side of Menno Simons as second or third, but it's, almost not. If you have that book, the government, will listen to everything you do every day if you have such a book at home. It's that rare. I have it. I even have, beside Menno Simons, a second and a third person. And there are, but you almost cannot find it. You cannot find it. And you probably have to know German or Dutch, or I don't know what you have. But it was always here in the round, in the center of Europe, in the worst area, German-speaking area, or whether it be Holland or Lower Germany, as here Austria and things like that. The borders were always different several centuries ago, but German-like language, and these were the people that were, good. So Menno Simons was one of them. I've published his writings because it is something that is not found anywhere else. But the Mennonites are not of him. So-called Mennonites. If you call yourself by some name, it's always wrong. Amish, I think it's in Hutterites, they're called by Aman and some Hut. They were all wrong. Don't call yourself after some person. So then the 10th question, when are you part of the right religion? Can you be part of the right religion? How easy it is to get into that? Well, if everyone wants to kill you, you are against everyone, you're stating all the public evil things, then you're part of it. If you don't do that and you're not in a group that does that, you're not part of it. Not yet. You may not be guilty because you're too young and things like that, but you're not part of that. You cannot be called a good person or someone who does the right things, or if being accused, getting out without guilt, unless you're too young. You're not part of that religion. 11th question, what was the religious life of the good people about? What was their religious life about? Well, it was a normal religious life. It was not some weird thing that Evangelicals and Catholics do. It was, of course, about singing. It was also about stating things together that they do believe and encouraging one another to do the right thing and to die for the things that you believe. So they wandered around. Were not allowed to have jobs, were not allowed to buy something or sell something or go somewhere or live somewhere or have a house or have a field or have a workplace. But they were oftentimes spread apart, and there were just few people, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 in some place somewhere hidden. And then they went to the public, their leader, and told them they should stop this evangelical and Catholic thing. Then they were chased away to another country and really did not know the language and all these things. There are many stories like that, and it's in the Martyrs' Mirror. So what was their life about? Yeah, what I've basically now said. It was not a weird thing that you sit at home and think about things and never change anything in society. It was all about making the world a better place and stopping all evil in the whole world. This was their goal, and that's what they gave their life for. And if you don't do that, you're not part of that religion. So 12th question, what are the stories of Catharism? The last question of Anabaptist questions. Well, I don't want to spend much on that. Catharism is the good people, they were called Cathars, which means pure people, some people who are very pure. And in German, it's called Ketza, the pure people. To this day, a heretic is called Ketza. It's called a Cathar in German. It's even in the German writings of Martin Luther, the translation, the official church documents. So, but when you look online about Catharism, you only find the worst things. You only find lies. You cannot find any good thing about Catharism online. So don't look it up, but you can look it up. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. They were the good people, and the name was just dragged into dirt because of inventions of Catholics. So now questions about politics. 13th question. Separation of church and state is wrong. Well, I've said that before and say it again. You cannot separate church and state. The church will always be above the state. Where do I derive these things from? Well, Luther took it out. The Catholics had it still in their documents. Now not officially anymore, but they had it. Really not officially. But they had it, yeah. The church is above the state, and if the church is evil, the state will be evil. That's the problem. You can try to separate it. It is not possible. The church will always influence and govern the state. You can try it. It was never possible. It was never possible. So it's a wrong concept. You can talk much more about it, about details and fine things and in which way it is right, and there is a right notion to it, but I've done it elsewhere, not doing it here. 14th question about politics. Another question about politics. 14th. Is democracy the correct system? No, it's not, because a party system is always at odds with each other. You should have just one party and it's doing the right thing, and everyone should agree upon it, and there should be not one evil person, not one evil opinion. allowed in a country. So basically, it is a dictatorship or monarchy with a good king. That would be the right thing, and he should also be chosen by the people. So in that sense, it's a democracy. So in that sense, it's the right thing. But all monarchies, dictatorships, and democracies are evil and will never result in any good thing as long as you tolerate one evil thing anywhere, because it will always spread until everyone is evil. And this is the case. And then good will not be allowed. But if only good people are allowed, good things are allowed, no evil thing would ever come forth and come up. This would be the goal, which was never achieved. And I mean, you never really will achieve it. You can try it and it can change. The whole world can change completely as in paradise. But you really not will completely make it because you've destroyed the whole world already. So is democracy the correct system? Yeah, in some ways, yes, in some ways not, as I've said. But you will never attain to the right system because you're all wrong. What about migration? Another 15th question, another question on politics. What about migration? Well, migration. Of course, you should love people, you should love foreigners, but if they are evil, you should take care. You should not let them into your country. You can have borders, you can have people outside and inside. You should protect the people inside more than care people about outside because they're closer to you. Yeah, I mean, but in the case of America, I mean, they are the migrants, European migrants on Indian soil. They have no business saying these things about other migrants. They are migrants themselves. They should give the country back to the Indians, ask the Indians what they would do, which migrants they would let into the country, and do the business together with the Indians so that the Indians agree in everything that the European migrants, so-called Americans, are doing. So this so much about migration, but side issue. Another question about politics, in all, 16th question. To what degree should a government allow different religions? Well, that's easy. Every government should allow every religion as long as it does good things, morally good things. If it does morally evil things, should not be allowed. The whole religion should not be allowed if it's there outside in doing evil things. That's it. It's not more difficult. So, 17th question. When is it your duty to speak against public evil? Well, it is always your duty to speak against public evil, but you may not be ready for it, and you may not be called to do that. You may be a woman. She's not called to public service in this way, but a man should be. So if you're a man, if you're old enough, if you have put your house in order, I mean, you live a decent life, and you have not done anything that is too severe to speak publicly again, too evil to ever speak publicly again, your duty is to, when the time comes, to speak against public evil as soon as you can, and when the right time comes. All circumstances should be correct. I mean, I cannot state all circumstances now, but this is how in general it is to be done. So it is the duty to speak publicly against all evil or to join others who do speak publicly against all evil, against all public evil. So 18th question, is the internet evil? Well, internet is the greatest public evil and should be spoken against and should be declared as an evil thing to be shut down completely or to be changed in such a way that you cannot recognize it anymore. It's very difficult, I know, but step by step, if everyone helps doing that, it can be accomplished, and very soon. So internet is evil, these big systems are evil, and the less they're used, the better, and the smaller it is trimmed down, the more it is made smaller, the better it is. 19th question, are oaths good or bad? Well, are oaths good or bad? Good oaths are good, bad oaths are bad. Even evangelicals lie about Anabaptists and about this group that they were always against oaths. Well, they were not against oaths, but they were against public oaths which swore for the Pope and things like that. And in that time, every oath was sworn toward the Pope and toward their religion and toward evangelicalism also. when the country was evangelical. So at that time, you could not swear any oath. I would not swear an oath if a naked woman is in the building, probably. I mean, I would call all the women to go out and then maybe take an oath in some way if the environment is suitable. You know, if there's whoredom in the room, you don't want to swear really. I mean, if you don't know it, I mean, but if you know it, it is hard to make a marriage publicly today because people don't wear clothes. I mean, it's almost not possible to make a public oath today because a phone rings, then there is some picture of a relative on it, and they have no clothes, and then you have in the presence of naked women have said an oath, and this is not a good thing. So do you want to take away all the phones of everyone? Do you want to get all women out? And I mean, it needs to be a very small environment that you can't do an oath today. And that's how they did it. They took the oath so seriously because with other things, it's not that bad. You know, I'm doing online. There are ads and naked things, but I'm not saying an oath here. I could not. And the same with even in a courtroom. I mean, they all need to be dressed very decently, and I mean, it needs to be perfect. For an oath, the standards are higher. You read your documents, Evangelicals, Catholics, it's in your documents. Some things are allowed, evil things are allowed to some degree, but for an oath, even small things are not allowed, even very small things. You may think this sounds crazy for you, but this is how good people see the weightiness of an oath. So another question, questions about marriage. My 3 questions quickly. How should you get married? 20th question. How you should get married. You should ask your parents whom to marry. They can bring a wife to you. You look at her, you know her, I mean, talk with her. If you are fine to marry her, you say yes. Then of course, was also talked about with the parents of the woman, and then you married in agreement with the parents of the woman and your parents. If parents are deceased, you can do it without them or with another person or a grandparent or someone who is alive. If nobody's there or they don't want to talk to you, I mean, and if they're not against it, you can do it on your own. This is basically how it is being done. Well, not complicated. If you do it against your parents, you're not allowed to do that. No, do not marry. Yeah. And if you do something against your parents, I mean, it's very rare that something in that case can be right in some way. Really, I mean, if they would have to force you to do an evil thing, then you can contradict them, but you almost never can contradict your parents. I mean, that's a problem. Yeah. The circumstances, you would hope that they would change, and then if they change, you can do the right thing. Every circumstance is different, so I'm just stating things in general. 21st question. Hindering conception is murder. Well, that is a public question. It's in question still, but this is the statement how it is. If you hinder a baby to be born, I mean, not by abortion, but to hinder it to come so far that it forms in the body, you know, this is even murder already. If you're married to a person, you should not hinder that. If you don't want a child, don't get close to your spouse. Otherwise, you will get a child. You will get a child. Don't hinder it in any way with any artificial means. It's all murder. If you have done that, you're guilty of death, and you can never say sorry for this. You have to bear your guilt, and the guilt will be until you die, and you will be miserable all the time. And many things will happen to you and to your children and to your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, because you've done that. It is such a horrible thing that is disgusting beyond degree and beyond words. So it should not be done. It is unnatural and wrong. It is just wrong. It is murder. Hindering a baby to be born. I mean, not killing a baby, aborting a baby. Hindering that it is being born. It is horrible. I don't want to be explicit, you know. I'm talking in this way. You are explicit. Even your translations of your church documents are explicit. More than what could be read in public oftentimes. It's just wrong what you do. 22nd question, when is divorce permitted? Well, if your spouse has another spouse and commits whoredom with that person, then it is permitted. In all other ways, it's not permitted. If your spouse just moves away, well, you're still married, but you just don't live with her. You should wait. You should wait until she has another person, and then you're free to leave. You're free to leave if she doesn't want to, but you are still married, I mean, you are in some way separated, yeah, but not, the bond is still there, and until it is broken by committing whoredom with another person, then you are free to leave. This is how basically it is handled oftentimes, more or less. Everyone errs in some way or the other. But this is how to reconcile all your documents and all the words that you received from your past, and there is no contradiction anywhere. Look at it more carefully, then you know I'm right. If you lean more on this side or more on that side, you're always wrong. I'm right in this way. And if I'm wrong, tell me how I'm wrong. I would change. If I did not do it intentionally, well, I could find out. I can change. But I doubt that I'm wrong. But yeah, I'm never so stable that to say that I'm completely perfect and can never err in anything. But I'm very confident in these things. Very confident, and it is not too much a difficult thing. Although no evangelical found out these things, and no Catholic, these religious people, they found out, yeah, but not really. Everyone is just wrong in some way or the other regarding these marriage things. That's why it's not a topic here, an extra topic, although just 3 questions. Well, another question is about religious leaders. All in all, 23rd question. What happens if there is guilt within a religious gathering? Well, point it out, change it, don't do it anymore. Don't do it anymore. Sometimes the light is flickering. I don't know how to change that. Yeah. Some focus. YouTube also changes, There's always something. AI is everywhere. If it doesn't like what I'm saying, make some flickering things. Or just turns the internet slow so that it cuts off. Yeah, I don't care. So what happens if there is guilt within a religious gathering? Well, say that it's wrong. Don't do it anymore. And if it's too bad, you have to leave. That's it. 24th question. What happens if the leader of a religious group does wrong? Well, tell him that he's wrong. If it doesn't change, leave. If it's too bad, leave. Just don't go there anymore. Tell them you're off. You have to tell someone, at least. You have to know in some way or the other. 25th question. Are religious leaders intentionally wrong? Well, if you're a religious leader, you thought about what you do, and if you do the wrong thing, you're intentionally wrong. Otherwise, you would wait until you know what to do. So they are intentionally wrong. Evangelicals and Catholics, they're all intentionally wrong. You may think they're not. I know them, they are. 26th question. Who is disqualified of being a religious leader? Anyone who has not a good reputation is disqualified of being a religious leader. If you don't have a good reputation, you're disqualified. If you're an evil person, you have it in your documents. If you don't behave in this way, you're disqualified. If you can't keep your house in order and your children, everything, you're disqualified. You can't throw the children out of your family, then you can be qualified because they're not part of your family anymore. If they do not behave well. That's how it's being done. You can still care for them, but not call them children anymore if they're evil. So everything is possible. Everything is possible. If you just do it, you have to be a good person. That's how it is. And if you have done some whoredom, you can never be a religious leader again. Some public whoredom, having another woman, do not keep your virginity, having another woman, which you're not married to. I mean, there are lower things of whoredom that can be not disqualifying just things when someone fights wrong thoughts until he has defeated them and they're not there anymore, a young person, which should always be the case, and every religious leader should never have a problem with whoredom, looking at women, I mean, it's not to think about, not to talk about. That should be obvious. That should be obvious. But all your religious leaders are committing all these things. Their eyes are full of evil, and they only look at evil things all the time. They never say publicly against something against all this whoredom. People are running around naked. So much to say about religious leaders. Then some moral questions. 27th question. Do you have to be a morally good person? Yes, you have. And this is obligatory. And if you're not a morally good person, you're an evil person. 28th question. What goal should evangelicals really have? Well, this is the same as the question before. The goal should be a morally good person. Not the things that they state, but you should do morally good things. This should be the end of the goal of evangelicalism. That's why it's wrong. If it would change completely, well, then it would be right. 29th question. What if you still keep on doing the rituals of Israel today? Well, then you're wrong. You misunderstood just everything, and you're twisted in your mind, and you're a morally bad person to go so far to do these things still today. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. And if you call that legalism, well, this legalism is wrong. Yeah. But the next question, 30th question, legalism is right and good. Well, if it's about moral obligation, of course it's right and good. Doing morally good things is a good thing, or is it bad not to lie? Or is it bad to obey your parents? Or is it bad to be a decent person, hard-working person, and not relying on others and begging for money? These are good things. Good deeds are good things. So legalism, keeping rules and keeping regulations is a good thing. And this is obligatory, and legalism is a good word and is the way for a happy and good life and a good end after you die. So you have been told wrong, because who quotes anything? They invented this term, they invented these things. Who quotes anything? No one. It was invented. Martin Luther, Reformation. 31st question. Liars are evil and are not upright people. Well, seems obvious, but it's a question today, because you're all liars, you're not upright. You don't say what you think. You keep back what you really think. You're not honest. And if you would lose your life, you're not honest anymore. Then you're a liar, you're not an upright person. And if you're a liar, you're not an upright person. What is that? An evil person. Who should be against you? Everyone who's good. Just to state these obvious things. Because you're all twisted. You all twist these things. Say good things are evil and evil things are good. 32nd question. Women who paint their eyes are whores. It's a question today. Well, a difficult question. Don't do it. You're a whore. Don't do it. You will have a bad end for doing that. Don't give attention to your eyes. Shameful eyelids and shameful eye movements. I mean, with shame, with decent shame, with good shame, not looking into the eyes of everyone all the time, young women to young men and things like that. It's just wrong. It's wrong. Look away. Sometimes look them into the eye, not too often, too much. And don't make your eyes attractive that people look into that and very big. And look at the people, look at the documents. Who did that? Whores did that. It is only mentioned in a negative way, always. There are other things that can be done, but not painting the eyes, and also not the mouth. You want to kiss everyone or what? You're just wrong. You're just wrong. 33rd question. Anything but classical music is evil. Well, this is still a question today. Anything that is not like classical music, that changes the rhythm, changes the pattern all the time, has no short interval, continuing loud pattern that brings in some trance and some weird mood, Then you go and, rap, rock, pop, everything that is not classical, everything, reggae, everything, absolutely everything, metal, everything. I mean, everything that's not classical or like classical, that is really like, lullabies of children and things like that are innocent, because it makes you crazy. It makes your mind crazy. It makes you commit whoredom. Do you not know that? This is the worst thing, because it's everywhere, and this is the thing that makes all women run around naked. That's why I'm saying that next 34th question. Women are running around naked. Why? Because of this weird music. They run around without any clothes, online. Everyone is accustomed to that. It is just disgusting. Stop these things. You're all whores. And you who let them do are all whoremongers. You like to look at them. Stop these things. It should not be allowed, whether in the gym, nor on any sports event, nor on the street, nor in the government seats and in the government podiums and in the church buildings and in the church pulpits. Everywhere. Women don't wear clothes anymore, and they all show their shame and are not ashamed anymore. They are shameless people. 35th question. Are children born evil or innocent? Well, it's both. To some way they're evil, but to some way they're innocent, because they don't know about the evil that they will commit when they are at age. So they're not evil in one sense. They're not evil. They're not to be treated as evil people, as evil children. No, they are innocent, and they have a good heart, and they're honest and upright. Of course, they do evil things, and they lie and steal and fight, and but when they're at age and they commit this innocent and they keep this innocent nature, they will keep on being innocent, which they should do. If they don't, well, if they're at age and know what to do, they deserve death eventually. But all in all, they are innocent. Evangelicals, Catholics twist these things all the time to their advantage, but it's all wrong. Then some other questions. 36th question. Do Catholics and Evangelicals correctly state the main historical accounts? I mean they're really main accounts, not about their history, but about their main goal. They do state it correctly, and it is correct what they say. What happened 2,000 years ago and how it happened, and the documents that they give to the public. I stand on the same ground as they do. With that, I'm standing on the same ground, but that does not mean that this is enough. This is by far not enough. If you don't act according to it, you don't really stand on that ground. And they don't act accordingly. So I'm not one of them, not in any way whatsoever, but I don't contradict their narrative, their story, their storyline, their main message, their main history, what their main religion is about. I don't contradict that. I am, to say it more clearly, I am that person that they nominally say they are, but they're not. They are anti-Christian. But I'm of that religion that they would publicly declare. Well, so in that way, their historical accounts are correct. It's an obvious thing, but I stated it here. 37th question. In which way do evangelicals twist the well-known stories? Well, there are many well-known stories, and they state them correctly, but they do twist the meaning of it. For example, the side stories, not the completely main stories, but the well-known stories that happened 3,000 years ago. The evangelicals, they twist it always in a way that makes these people look like them. They were evil, they lied, and they did this, they did that. Well, in fact, they did something correct and morally good, and they stated in a way as if it would be bad to make them seem evil, and then they excuse that they themselves are evil. They were good people. They were good people. Really, they were good people. And they state all these stories in a way that makes all these stories seem to be like an evangelical life, But it was different. If you just read the story and don't add what they do add, and don't twist the whole story, you just let it be there as it is, you have a completely different story. All these stories are then very different. So they just twist it. Read it again. It's not so difficult. Just leave out what they add, read it again, think of it again, and then you can find out. Think about what they've always told you in addition to these things. Is it really true? No. Does it shed a bad light upon these people? And which is not true? Look at these things. You can find out. So 38th question. How many people are wrong approximately? Well, it's a funny question. Just a different kind of question now. I mean, almost everyone. There are only very few people who are right. But how many are few people? Well, it can be 1 in a million. It can be 1 in a billion. It can be less than 1 in a billion. How many were there in former times? Well, when there were 600,000 people, there were 2. Yeah, so, and this was in a very good environment. So you would not expect today as many. If you would expect 1 in 100,000, you would expect too many, far too many. Because Menno Simons even said, rarely you find one person in 1 in 100,000, rarely. So Evangelicals and Catholics were not very guilty, because if you kill a few people in all of history, you've killed a whole tradition, because there were not many. Well, I mean, those few people, they were worth so much that if they killed them, they've killed everything. But the broad spectrum, they killed many, many more people than just the good people. The greatest majority of the people that they killed, they were evil, but still innocent. They should not be killed. They should not be killed. I mean, it should not be done. Don't want to say anything more that makes it complicated. So there are just very few people here and there, but in every generation, almost in every generation, there were some, and people just heard about them and could go to them. They were always fleeing from one country to the next. But it has been said that in every generation there were people like that everywhere in the whole world, and you could join them. But they were chased out of every country all the time. So there were some. Yeah, there were some. There was a house here and there, but not always one house in every country. Oftentimes there was no house in the country. And I say house, but they were chased out of the house. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, a group, a family, a group together. There were just a few people always, and they had never had a building. It was always torn down as soon as it would have been built. A small house, if it would have been built, it was torn down. If they just met once in one house for fortnight, it was also torn down. They never had buildings, There were house groups in a house. They never were so many people that they would have needed a very big thing. Sometimes, of course, but it disperses immediately, because people join and go. There are 1,000 people who join, and in a few days they're all gone. And so in this way, there were millions and millions in this way, but they are quickly gone, as it was 2,000 years ago. Whole countries were just gone. Or it started, everyone joined them, but then they were chased. They were chased out of every country. The joy quickly diminished, and they were not part of that society anymore. They were left with 1, 2, 3 people that were like-minded, although there were in the beginning thousands and thousands. And this is how it was. And they were always killed so quickly. You could not even tell how they really meant it. They just joined it and they were killed. Yeah, this is how it was. I mean, a religious leader has been said to live a few months at most, if there was one. They were so much against the leaders. Against the common people they were also, but most against the leaders. So there were very few, because they were always killed. It was very dangerous. And you could imagine, you don't do it today. So you see how few there are. How did I find this way? 39th question, personal question. Well, I mean, in a normal way. I was raised in a Lutheran state church in not really raised in a particularly religious sense. I mean, not really much. Did not read these documents of the church, and but I went to church, went to youth group, was thrown out, went to other churches, looked online for things until I found out these things, just in a normal way. I've studied these things elsewhere in other videos. Named them all live streams. I mean, you can look them up. Look some minutes and some hours or somewhere. I'm always rehearse myself, talk the same things always again. Soon you have heard everything, you know everything, then you don't need to listen to what I'm saying anymore, but you just need to do these things. It doesn't take long. If you listen 10 hours, you've heard everything probably. It doesn't take too long. And you don't need ever to listen to anything what I say for your whole life, then you know enough, then you can do all these things. Well, the earth was populated by 3 people groups. Well, yes, I've said that already somewhere. And they are not equal. The firstborn is the highest, which is Israel. The next is the second, which is the Muslims in Europe. And the third are the slaves of everyone, which are blacks, Indians, people of color, Chinese. Sadly, slaves of everyone, but because of the guilt of their forefather, they have this destiny, which they cannot get rid of. But the Jews and the Europeans and Muslims do take advantage of these things, which is wrong. And they are more guilty because they have more authority. They're more guilty, especially Israel, if they don't use their authority for the good of all the people who are lower to them, especially people of color and everyone like that, and the Chinese, If they don't help them in the greatest way that they can and do all the things for them, their guilt is so great, and also Israel, if they don't help Europeans and Muslims so much as they can, never be against them. Their guilt is so great. And the same with Europeans. If they are against the black people and take away the country of the Indians, their guilt is so great. The blacks and the Indians and Chinese, when they do something wrong, their guilt is not as great as with the white people. White supremacy is the right thing, but it should not be used against. It should be used to be a humble leader of the others. You should be the servant of them. You should be lower and voluntarily lower than them and help them. And you have not done that, and you're all wrong. Even the blacks, I'm not excusing even the lowest people, although they were, with blacks, Africans, I also mean Indians, I also mean people of color, I also mean Chinese. They're all related. Populated the earth by 3 people groups, and you are part of that society. And we, the Europeans, have taken your country, the Indians. To this day, we have not given it back to you. It is what a shame to be white. What a shame. And then you should not be allowed to say Black Lives Matter. Well, of course, you should say that, but not commit violence and things like that. What the whites have done to you in slavery and everything, they can never say sorry for these things. But you have done the same things to Israel. Your forefathers. So there you have the full circle. Everyone is guilty. Just stop these things. Don't look what was, only to not make it do the same things again. Go ahead. Don't forget what has happened. Say sorry for this. Be ashamed for this. Every nation, every people group. And make a world where you don't fight against each other. You can if you want to. It is not a difficult thing. So if I've forgotten something and overlooked one question of these 40, I can place it in the end again. But should be it. These were questions about Baptists, about politics, about marriage, about religious leaders, morality, and other things.